I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside. It's so comfortable and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off road. The guy managed the group. He was like, "What are you doing in this beautiful car?" I'm like, "I'm going off road." He's like, "Are you sure? Because you can use one of ours." And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, no, we're going to do this. And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability as well as its robust interior are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
Have you seen the excellent TV series Silo on Apple Plus? It's a science fiction series. I won't describe anything more about it, but I love it. My whole family loves it. And I am glad to have the writer and creator of the initial novel of the series, Hugh Howey, on the podcast today. I've known Hugh for about a decade. Amazon, about a decade ago, flew Hugh, me, and a bunch of other self-published writers who were doing very well with self-publishing, flew us out to Santa Monica. We all had dinner. We all talked about writing and publishing. And the next day, Jeff Bezos showed us all a Kindle Fire. He launched the Kindle Fire that day. And it was a fun time. I got to know Hugh, came on the podcast in 2014. Hugh has such a great story. He was initially just working in bookstores, and he was a roofer, and he worked on boats. He was writing science fiction novel after science fiction novel and other novels as well. And just like I found when I self-published Choose Yourself, he found when he self-published Wool, which eventually became the TV series Silo, he found this is the way to go. And we describe why in the podcast, but we talk about writing, self-publishing, science fiction, the TV series Silo and TV in general, optimism versus pessimism, AI, and so many other interesting things. He's a very smart guy filled with wisdom. Here's Hugh Howey.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show.
So, Hugh, I'm just curious, and I was thinking this as I was watching Silo. At what point, when you first watched, you probably watched, many iterations of the first show, but when did you feel, oh, I'm in really good hands? They're going to take care of this story.
It was actually on the set. First time I visited the set where they were shooting in London, we watched a take, and I looked at the folks around me, the writer on set, who was Eric that day, and the director and the DP, and they all looked at each other with kind of wide eyes. And then Eric looked at me and he was like, whoa, this is good. And these guys have all worked on really big stuff. And I have a hard time telling from performances and dailies and even the final cuts without all the CGI and the music and the sound. All that stuff adds so much to it. But these guys could tell just from the takes that they were getting that day that something special was happening. And That was the first time I thought, man, if these guys are impressed, then something nice can come from this.
I mean, and I'm not going to give away any spoilers or anything, but really right in the first few minutes, I started wondering about this question because it was just beautiful, just the world creation. And it's so believable, and all the characters seem so fleshed out.
Yeah, I mean, no one's just reading lines here. Everyone got so into it. Morton told him we got, an Oscar caliber film director to shoot the pilot. And he read the book and he just fell in love with the story. And he and I would just geek out. Like he was so passionate about it. And so he would go to every single department and check what they were doing and say, no, these are the materials they would use. And we need to rethink this logo design and what kind of furniture design would they use. Like he got so into the details, as you should as a director. And Graham Yost, the showrunner, was the same. Like he was totally involved in all the character motivations and what was really happening. And then that really went down to Rebecca, who dove into her character, David and Rashida. Like everyone was reading the books and the scripts, and there's a level of commitment and involvement that was really exciting to watch.
And, if I remember, this was like an accidental series in some sense. Like, I remember reading, initially Wool, which people don't realize it was a collection of books. Now it's one book, but it was really like you made Wool 1. There was like Wool 1 through 4, I think. I forget how many were in that first quote unquote series, which is now a book called Silo, and which became the TV show. But the first Wool, you intended that as a one-off. You didn't even know there was going to be like a series, but then everybody was writing in. I mean, it's got 37,000 reviews. So everyone was writing in. So he said, oh, okay, I'll just continue this story.
That's exactly what happened. I had the idea as a novel, but I was so busy with other books that, I had like just a handful of people wanting sequels. And that was all the demand I had at the time. So I was just writing more books in that series, but I had these other novels I wanted to get out. And I'd written a novelette called The Plagiarist and kind of fell in love with this 15,000 word kind of length. It's about a 50-page book, which you can't market in the old world, but with the Kindle and print on demand, it doesn't matter how long something is. You could publish a haiku if you want. The challenge is getting someone to read it or pay for it or recommend it to others. And so I took the idea of this novel and condensed it down to a much shorter story, published it for 99 cents on the Kindle store, and completely forgot about it. I went back to writing my next novel. And that was the story that I don't know how to explain it. There's a lot of luck involved. It's like, why does one Facebook post go viral and another one not?
Yes, there's a lot of unpredictability in that. But would you agree? Like, I kind of advise people who are writing that actually quantity is more important than quality.
It really is.
I'm not saying there's any, as I've read a lot of your books and it's all high quality, but you have to put a lot out there because there's so much unpredictability in everything we do and there's so much competition. But if you do put a lot out there, something's going to hit.
Every published work is a lottery ticket. Sitting at home and like putting wax and polishing your single lottery ticket to make it the most beautiful lottery ticket possible doesn't really increase your odds as much as trying to get 20 lottery tickets out there. To your point, like the quality has to be good, but I see people like taking that first book they write and rewriting it and polishing it and promoting it and trying to get something to take hold. And their time would be better spent hitting publish, forgetting about it, write the next thing. You're going to get better. You're going to find your voice. You're going to experiment with different genres. You'll find a character that right now doesn't exist because you're not giving them a chance to come to life. So yeah, I've always said that to people, like the best marketing, the best promotion is publishing your next story.
I want to get into the self-publishing and how you kind of started out because it's such this indie, almost Quentin Tarantino-ish type of story. But I just want to mention one of my favorite novels by you, I think you wrote this maybe before Wool, was Hurricane.
Yeah.
It's just about this like teenage boy stuck in a hurricane, so he has no access to social media, and then what happens to him. And I just thought it was a very beautiful story. But
Thanks, man.
you were working in a bookstore, right? And then you started writing and self-publishing books.
Yeah, I've worked in bookstores since college, but after I spent a bit of my 20s basically working on yachts and doing a lot of sailing and serving as a captain on big power boats. And when I got out of that, I finally started getting some novels finished. and I was doing a signing for my very first novel at a bookstore, and the manager was looking for part-time help, and it seemed like a perfect gig to allow me to have time to write and to be, plugged into the industry. But I wasn't really thinking about making a living at it. I was just super excited to be writing things to their conclusion and having a handful of eager readers. Since I worked at the bookstore, I could like shelve my books with the other books and just have
Right.
them sitting on the shelf in one bookstore. And that was it. That's how it all started. Just I had this kind of daily routine of writing and working in the bookstore and publishing. And
And when you say publishing, you were self-publishing on Amazon. Like, that's actually how you and I met, was Amazon flew a bunch of self-published writers out to Santa Monica, and we all had dinner, and then Jeff Bezos launched the Kindle Fire. But, you were a big proponent of self-publishing right from the beginning, and what were your initial thoughts on it? Like, a lot of people at that time, this is like 2012, 2011, 2013, at that time, there was still, I don't think it exists now, it still exists a little, but there was a stigma to self-publishing, kinda like vanity publishing, even though it's not that at all.
yeah, it's changed a lot, boy, since you and I met. I think my first self-published book was like 2009, maybe.
Huh.
The Kindle had just come out like the year before. KDP was really brand new. And it's just, again, more luck. I was just starting to publish at a time when these tools were becoming available. My first book got picked up by a small press. So I tried the traditional route on a small scale, and the tools they used to publish were tools that were available to anybody. So with the second book, I just decided to do it on my own and never really looked back. My initial thoughts about self-publishing were, I had no idea. Like, I was asking people in forums, what do you guys think about that? And everyone trying to make it as a writer on these like traditional writing forums said it'd be the death of my career. Don't do it. You're an idiot. Real authors don't do this. You need a career. You need to get an agent. My publisher, my first book, when I wrote them asking to buy the rights back and told them I was going to publish on my own, they said, this would be the end of your career. It's a huge mistake. I didn't have anyone telling me this was a good idea. Nobody. And that's why when I started having some success, my publishing career was half of what I was doing. The other half was me encouraging people and telling them, like, look, you might not make a living at this and you have to get lucky, but there's nothing stopping you. Like, the things that people say can never happen, all that's untrue. And those things are also unlikely if you try to go the traditional route. So I really wanted to help like lower that stigma and get more people to publish rather than frustrate themselves with all the gatekeepers or learning how to write a query letter and all the other like really crazy obstacles there are to publishing.
Yeah, and look, I don't wanna put down the publishing industry, but when you say, okay, if someone says, "Oh, mainstream publishing is the only way to go," those people who are picking and choosing books, they're no better or worse than anybody. They're just readers like everyone else, so why not let the readers decide by just uploading your book to Amazon? And it's not just a Kindle book, it's a paperback, hardcover, audiobook. It could look like every other book. No one knows the difference.
Yeah, exactly.
And no one asked you, like, has anyone ever asked you, "Hey, man, who was your publisher?"
It's funny, even beyond that, publishers think that readers care about imprints and, agents and authors and people in publishing, they care about like, who the imprints are within publishers. And they think it's super important, but readers just don't know and don't care. Like, is the story good? They care about cover art. I think a lot of self-published books, my early books included, really shoot themselves in the foot with really bad cover art.
Yeah.
So there are things like in the packaging that are really important that publishers can help with. But what I heard were like, here are the things that are not possible if you self-publish. You'll never get into bookstores, which once Wool took off, like it hit the New York Times list as a self-published book, and Barnes and Noble was stocking it, which was insane because this was like printed by Amazon. And they were stocking it simply because there were enterprising bookstore managers who were sick of the 10th person that day saying, do you have this book? And you don't want to just say like, go buy it on Amazon. They could buy the print on demand version and make a couple of bucks, or they could make no bucks. So there were all these things that were supposedly impossible. Like, you'll never get a film deal. You'll never land an agent. You'll never get reviewed in a serious paper or magazine. Like all the things you couldn't do. And what I realized looking around is that no one had even tried these things, that everyone had believed all the naysayers. And so it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. If everyone says you can't do it, no one tries. And then of course no one does it.
I found that along the way that agents and publishers now almost look at the self-published books as sort of that's where they're finding their books. Like agents contacted me after I started self-publishing because then they see what sells.
Yeah, it's the slush pile. What's funny is that was one of the questions I asked. There's a forum back in the day called Absolute Right. I'm not sure if they're still around or not, but it was a place to go for really terrible writing advice because everything they told me was the opposite of what happened. And really early on, I said exactly what you've discovered. I was like, I think eventually self-publishing is going to be a place where agents will go to find talent because these are people proving that they're going to work hard. They're going to finish what they start. They have some publishing acumen and all these other things, and they can read samples for free. And I actually got like so bullied for putting that out there and trying to defend myself. They just like you're not welcome here anymore. Like this is too heretical. And it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Actually, was getting kind of seeing how vehemently, passionately wrong people could be. It really liberated me and allowed me to try things I think that I wouldn't have tried otherwise if people would have been a little less ugly about their pronouncements.
And that also allows you to get to what we were earlier talking about quantity. Like you can't, if you're publishing a book every 2 years with a mainstream publisher, you're never going to get quantity. But if you could, write a book in a few months and then put it out there, you can start the next book and so on.
Totally.
People don't realize 50 Shades of Grey was originally self-published.
Yeah.
And then before it was picked up.
Yeah, it blew up. And well, there were quite a few, like The Martian started as serialized on Andy Weir's blog. Now I think that's why the stigma is falling. Now it's not just you can point to one person and say, look, here's the exception. Now success is happening from all kinds of places. There are people who get deals because of their blogs or their Twitter feeds, or it's just, we're looking for entertainment. We're not looking for people who survived a very specific path.
You know what I love about fantasy sports is that even though I'm not going to be a great basketball player or a baseball player or a football player or whatever, I feel like I get to participate and make decisions and use my knowledge of these different leagues or these different sports to compete. So it's like I can pick my team or I can pick my favorite players and I could use my knowledge to make predictions and maybe even make money. So with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League on Prize Picks. This is a league created specifically for combo projections that include two or more players from different sports or leagues. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, who's also been a guest on this podcast, and I've been a guest on his? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Look, Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. What? So, I love playing it. I love anywhere where I can use analytical ability with my interests to demonstrate some skill and maybe make some money. And I like the game-like aspect. I do wish they had chess as a category on prizepicks.com, but I'll settle for what they've got. Maybe I should make my own fantasy chess league. But in any case, I love Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/James. Use code James for a first deposit match up to $100. That's the easiest $100 you're ever going to make. So that's prizepicks.com/James and use code James. Daily fantasy sports made easy. The future of learning is definitely online. Like it's such BS that you have to spend $200,000 or take $200,000 in loans and go to some fancy school when it's useless. It doesn't guarantee you a job. Most employers, including me, do not care about degrees or grades or anything like that. We want to care that you love what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, in some cases that you have experience or that you're willing to learn. But people in general love learning and are curious. Like the key to success is curiosity. And I think masterclass.com is the perfect model for online learning. I'm really happy they're sponsoring this episode. If you're going to give a gift, give the gift of learning. Masterclass makes a meaningful gift this season for you and anyone on your list because both of you can learn from the best to become your best, from leadership to effective communication to cooking. Let me tell you some of the classes I've taken. I've taken comedy from Steve Martin. I mean, can you believe I can take a class from Steve Martin on comedy, or Judd Apatow, my favorite comedy director? I could take an actual class from him on writing. Wolfgang Puck on cooking. Dan Brown on writing, or Judy Bloom, who's been on this podcast, on writing. By the way, Wolfgang Puck also has been on this podcast. It's such a pleasure. I try to take classes all the time from masterclass.com. And whether you're watching Masterclass on TV or listening in audio mode in the app or on their site, the quality speaks for itself. It's like these masterclass instructors are your own personal mentors that are going to help you reach the next level. How much would it cost to take one-on-one classes on comedy from Steve Martin or on chess from Gary Kasparov? You just wouldn't be able to do it. But it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. With a masterclass annual membership, it's $10 a month. Memberships start at $120 a year for unlimited access to one-on-one classes with all 180 plus masterclass instructors. So it's not just $120 for one instructor. You get all 180 plus masterclass instructors. Boost your confidence and find practical takeaways you can apply to your life and at work. And if you own a business or are a team leader, use Masterclass to empower and create future-ready employees and leaders. That's the real education in today's world. So this holiday season, you can give one annual membership and get one free at masterclass.com/JAS. JAS, of course, stands for the James Altucher Show. So right now you can get two memberships for the price of one at masterclass.com/JAS. Masterclass.com/JAS. Offer terms apply. You ran a site for a while that you were looking at the statistics of self-publishing versus mainstream publishing. I don't know if you still run that site, but you had some data that, if you look at all the self-published reviews, like rankings, star rankings, they tended to be on average higher ranked than the books published by mainstream publishers, and similar for sales ranks. They tended to have a higher sales rank on average than the mainstream books.
Yeah, well, I was actually approached by someone who's a data scientist who was also trying to figure out how to publish his first novel in order to make a decision. He realized, like I did, there was really no good advice out there, no strong data. So he created a spider that crawled the entire Amazon book listings. Like it used each URL for recommended books to crawl the entire catalog. He could use data pulled from the book listing pages to figure out who published it, where it was priced, what its ranking was, and then polled a bunch of authors to figure out, okay, because he could even poll, like I had a number one best-selling book on Amazon for a while, and I could tell him, like, here's how much you have to sell in a week to reach that ranking. And it creates a very beautiful logarithmic curve of sales to rank. So he was able to figure out how much each of these books was earning, who they were published by, and then combine them into cohorts. And the self-publishing cohort was out-earning any of the major publishers. There's a you can really get granular with what that means because there's a lot more self-published books. There's tons of ways to interpret the data. But the one thing that we were hearing was that no one was making a living with self-published books, and we're able to point to people. And now we know people on YouTube, there are people making tens of millions of dollars a year reviewing toys on YouTube and doing things that just don't sound like they'd be profitable.
Yeah.
And that's because it's all happening kind of behind the scenes. And he helped uncover that. And I was just there to host the data and help him interpret it and try to use my limited soapbox to give it a broader audience.
And then, after Wool became such a big hit, one of the number one science fiction books of all time, many people were referring to it as, when did the idea of, I know initially you were thinking of it as in terms of making a movie, and Ridley Scott approached you. What was the story there? Like, how did the journey towards Silo, the TV show, begin?
I started getting, I think the first person to reach out about the option had happened before the book was even complete. It was like after part 3 was out or something. Someone from BBC America reached out and said, hey, I want to option this. And that was interesting to me because it wasn't even finished. But once I got an agent, Kristen Nelson, she linked me up with her LA co-agent, the person who does all the book adaptations, Cassie Evashevsky, who's huge in book to film adaptation. She did all the Twilight books and big successes in that realm. She sent it around and there was all this hype because it hit the New York Times list as a self-published book. They're writing about it everywhere. And it was going to go to auction, had some major producers interested. And Ridley Scott and Steve Zalian came in and said, we don't want this to go to auction. We want to preempt it, and made a great offer with 20th Century Fox backing them. And it was just like too good to be true. Like I assumed nothing would ever get made. And I thought, well, if I can throw Ridley's name around, it'll help with book sales. It'll help with foreign deals. Like that's a guarantee. And so I kind of took the guarantee rather than take a chance with some producers who probably had a better chance of it getting made.
Can you say what happened? Like what?
Yeah, they had it for like 5 years. They had the ability to renew it as often as they wanted. And every time they renewed it, they'd have another director, another script written. Each time it came up for renewal, I just kept asking like, hey, if it's not going to get made this year, I'd love to have the rights back. They didn't have to do that. They could have either paid the purchase price, which wasn't a godly sum of money, or they could have optioned it indefinitely and waited until the right time. But to their credit, I love these guys. I had a really good relationship with all the people involved on those teams. And they really felt like they wanted to see this made too. And if they weren't going to do it, they were willing to let me have the rights back. So amazing move on their part. When the rights came back, my team of agents and I just had conversations. Do we want to go the film route again, or do we want to try TV? And at the time, TV was becoming the prestige thing it is now. And there's more money in film. Like you can earn percentage at the back end and all kinds of stuff if it gets big. But I've never made decisions based on money really, especially at this point in my career. I didn't have to worry about that. So I was like, look, let's do TV. I think we'll make a better product if it's done well. We can expand the story instead of truncating it. And so we took it out, and Amazon, AMC, and Apple both were really interested. And it came down to those three parties. And I ended up going with AMC because Apple didn't even have a service out yet. I was having to sign NDAs to even discuss this with them. It was all super secret at the time. But they never gave up, kept calling AMC and saying, hey, how are you guys doing with this? Can we partner? And AMC finally asked me like, hey, what do you think about combining forces? And I was like, let's do it. And that's the deal we have now. Like AMC helped all the story development in the writer's room and get the show going. And Apple came in and said, we want to create this and we want it on our channel. And I got kind of the best of both worlds.
So how does it work? Like you mentioned how, people don't make as much money in TV as movies. And it used to be the TV model. Everybody would make money because of syndication. So if a show ran for 5 seasons, then lesser known channels or local channels would buy the rights in that area for the show and air it like at 5 p.m. forever. And the actors would make money every time the show aired. With these streaming networks, that just doesn't happen anymore. So what is the model of TV now? I have no clue.
I have no clue either. It's so weird because like they don't share data. Like this is true, I think, of all the big tech streamers like Netflix and Amazon and Apple. We don't know like Nielsen ratings on any of this stuff. We see their rankings on their like what's hot, but it's all relative. There's no like objective measure of how many people are tuning in. So you don't get paid per view like on YouTube or Spotify. It's, very, kind of a one-time fee, and that's it pretty much. Different studios are trying to do things to incentivize. But the way it looks to me, it's the top showrunners, the people who have all-around deals make these mega blockbuster deals, and everyone else is just kind of fighting for whatever they can get with each individual deal. And that's what a lot of the writer's strike right now is trying to deal with, because like there's so much confusion right now how to make a living at this, and people trying to sort that out.
But the flip side is, I would think there's like thousands and thousands of shows now. And
exactly.
As opposed to like when we were all kids, there were 4 shows. It seems like every writer and actor must have a job now, but it's just not true. Like, how come everybody's not acting everybody who wants to be an actor should be able to get a job? And that doesn't seem to be the case. Like, are there more actors than we all thought? But
yeah, I think so. And also, the actors who are popular get all the roles. It's amazing. you can shoot 3 films and be in, in a year and be in 2 TV shows concurrently. Some of my favorite actors are getting those kinds of gigs where it's like every time you turn around, it's like, wait, The Mandalorian is also starring in The Last of Us. Like
Yeah.
these are like 2 of the hottest shows on TV right now, and it's the same actor in both of them. And and by the way, 2 films in the same year. So I think there's some of that. Like the winners win big, and everyone else is kind of grinding. That seems to be true in all entertainment fields. It's true for authors. People used to make a living as studio writers, but it wasn't that many people making that living. And I think there are more people getting a piece of the pie now, but all of them are having to like hustle in order to survive. And I can't say definitively which one is better. I would rather have more people be involved, even if it means people are making less money. But I do think the people at the very top, like it's crazy what CEO pay is. And that's not an entertainment industry problem. That's a capitalism problem. But no one is adding $200 million worth of value to their company in 1 year. Nobody.
It's interesting because to some extent, your story, your silo story is initially about powerful, mysterious entities at the top somehow controlling things for reasons we don't know why. And to some extent, and this is true for a lot of dystopian literature, that's a reflection of the lives we live right now. And I wonder how much you were thinking about that while you were writing, the original Wool.
When you put it like that, it sounds like I was writing about my publishing adventures.
Well, it's true for every industry, probably. There are
Yeah.
mysterious people at the top who are making decisions, who are trying to make decisions about our lives, and our job is to not let them succeed.
Right before I wrote Wool, I had spent a couple years working as a roofer in Virginia, and it's one of the hardest jobs you can ever have. Like even other trades look up at the roofers, literally, but look up at them with just like pity almost. Like, man, I'm glad that's not me. Like shoveling snow off of a roof, working in 100-degree heat. It's a brutal, brutal job. And I moved from that job. Before that, I was working on these yachts, making like 6 figures, driving boats around with 0 living expenses. And it was a transition from a job that's completely superfluous, like no one needs a yacht, to a job that is the most critical, which is providing shelter for people. And my pay was like a fraction. But what I realized is my like happiness and my feeling of self-worth was so much higher. And I think that shift in occupations played a huge role in the structure of Wool and who the heroes are and who the villains are, and which is still messy and complex. But I really found purpose in doing a job that paid a lot less, but provided a real service rather than being a glorified bus driver.
And then what happened like later when there was one point where you basically gave up everything and just sailed around the world for years?
I mean, gave up it sounds like I gained everything. Yeah,
Right.
so
That could be.
yeah, boating was my first passion. Even before I made it as a writer, I lived on a boat and sailed around the Bahamas and just enjoyed the vagabond lifestyle and the joy of traveling with all of your things with you to beautiful tropical watery places. It's like RVs, but with a better view usually. And the whole time I was kind of working in yachts, I was dreaming of getting my own boat and sailing around the world one day. And the writing career just facilitated that. So as soon as I felt like I needed, some time to tell more stories and fill up on new adventures, I put the writing on hold and went on a big sailing adventure.
Did you take time off from writing?
Yeah, I was still writing. I was publishing like short stories. I put out a collection of short stories. I was writing some nonfiction, self-help stuff that I don't really market or promote. But
The Wayfinder series?
yeah, I've got people still email me every day, like, when's another one coming out of that? And like it found a following, even though I was just doing it to try to organize my own thoughts on some things. And I was helping edit anthologies, to kind of empower other authors and contributing to those. So I was staying busy, but I was nowhere near as prolific with the novels as I was before I took off.
Do you think you kind of lose youthful exuberance and energy, as the decades go by?
I have not. I've just put it to a different place. But now, I mean, before we got on, I'm working on publishing like 4 different things this morning. Like my writing and publishing career is just at the same level of like unbelievable overdrive as it was when Wool took off. So for me, it's just the TV stuff was keeping me busy for a while. I was reading a lot of scripts and writing features and pilots and stuff, and that was fun. But now I'm like working on finishing up the Sand trilogy, and I've got some children's picture books coming out and all kinds of weird stuff.
In the TV industry, when you say you were reading scripts, like were you assisting other shows or were you pitching shows?
Pitching shows, reading. We had 2 books go into like production on back-to-back days in the middle of the pandemic, which is so weird. And like just yesterday, I got another hour-long pilot sent to me about based on the plagiarist story that I mentioned earlier. So I've got to read and give notes on that. And it's like 10 episodes and they do 10 revisions. It's a lot of reading. Like every time you got to read and see what's changed and give notes and feedback.
But that's good that they're involving you in the process. Like often they don't involve the original writer in the process.
Yeah, I've been very lucky in that regard. And I've got a good relationship with the people in the room. And it's funny, like watching the first 2 episodes, I see places where I thought the motivations were unclear and there's like a little, not enough tension in some decisions, and gave some notes. And the final product that we see now has like a couple of key moments that I think are so much better just because I threw out a few ideas that someone else liked and they incorporated. So it makes a difference.
Oh my gosh, I love these clothes. Mizzen and Main. That's Mizzen and Main. It really is the most comfortable work clothes. Travel clothes. I had to travel this whole week. I'm traveling for a week and a half, and I just took Mizzen and Main clothes with me. Close out 2023 in style with comfortable, breathable, packable, and machine washable pieces from Mizzen and Main. As you wrap up your year-end goals, enjoy a Mizzen and Main dress shirt that you can wear confidently. I like that they've very, very just nice, solid colors. I don't really like to get all fancy in patterns and everything, although they do have some pattern shirts, but very comfortable clothes, stretchable pants. It's just super comfortable, but they look professional and you can wear them casually or professionally. I like some of their flannel shirts or untuck shirts. I love untuck. I never tuck in. So again, whether you're shopping for a special someone or giving yourself the gift you really want, I just buy myself gifts. Mizzen and Main is the perfect gift for any guy who works, travels, and or cares about looking and feeling great. As you could tell by my many photos across the internet, I care about looking fantastic. I'm practically a model. And let's be honest, every guy loves to look great. So again, shop now at mizzenandmain.com and save 20% when you spend $130 or more using promo code James. That's promo code James at Mizzen and Main, Mizzen and Main.com. This is such a valuable service for all business owners, big businesses, small businesses, doesn't matter. I wish I had this in the many different businesses that I've started. Sometimes it seems like your business is humming, but then suddenly you don't understand it. You're starting to fall behind. You're not understanding where your costs are, where your revenues are, where your payments are. Teams are buried in all sorts of like BS work, and you can't seem to close the books. So you need like one dashboard, one source of truth. I'm jealous of this business, NetSuite from Oracle, of course, NetSuite by Oracle. I wish I'd come up with this idea. It's a brilliant concept to have all your business intelligence on one dashboard. This is why you need to know these 3 numbers: 37,000, 25, and 1. So 37,000, that's the number of businesses which have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, streamlining accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, and more. 25. NetSuite turns 25 this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down costs. 1, because your business is one of a kind. So you get a customized solution for all of your key performance indicators, your KPIs, in one efficient system with one source of truth. Manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything you need to grow all in one place. So right now, download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist designed to give you consistently excellent performance absolutely free at netsuite.com/James. That's netsuite.com/James to get your own KPI checklist. netsuite.com/James. I was reading one of your Facebook posts recently, and you've been like everybody, you've been playing with ChatGPT and AI. And you had this beautiful post about you asked ChatGPT to create a religion. And I found its response totally fascinating. Like I loved the religion it came up with. Can you describe that?
Yeah, harmonism, I think,
Yeah,
because it came up with the name and
yeah.
the holidays and everything, and even some songs. I think this is the thing that's going to surprise people about AI. I think its greatest value to humanity is going to be its wisdom. My wife said something really clever to me the other day because we were looking at kind of the ethics of AI, and she pointed out that people have a really hard time being human. And I thought that was a great insight. Like whether you're a teacher or a, guidance counselor or a therapist, the people that you need to be like there for you, a judge in court, like I need your humanity. It's difficult for them to give that all the time because of energy and nutrition and hormones and exhaustion, and they're dealing with their own stuff. These AIs are unflappable, and their mental muscularity, it shows up when they are giving you life advice and coaching you. Like they just never give up on you and they never get frustrated. And I think we're going to find that they are better at being good than we are. And I think their smartness will be less interesting to me than their ethical excellence.
I wonder why that is, because if you break it down, like what ChatGPT is a collection of basically all text ever written by humanity, including tweets, Reddit posts, books, articles, everything from the beginning of time till 2021. And so that includes the good, the bad, the ugly, everything ever written. And then, of course, its responses were kind of honed for years by, many millions of man years of manual labor saying that's a good response, that's not a good response. So it sort of learned what types of response were considered good. I wonder where it was able to emphasize on the wisdom as opposed to all the crappy things that are on the internet we see all day long.
I think that's because most things on the internet are good. Most people are trying to be good. And even the people who are like griefers and trolls, like most of them want to be loved and want to have good things in their life. And so the bad is just drowned out. And even bad people understand that most people want to be good. So like their bias towards that, it just bleeds into everything that they write. Like they know, hey, I'm being a troll. Like they'll admit to their bad behavior while they're doing it. And that just gives more data to the AI, which is like, don't be like this. Like even bad people are training the AI. So I think the idea that it's all we take all these colors and swirl them and we get this brown poop looking mixture isn't how AI is actually working. We're telling it what's good and what's bad. And so it's sorting it out. It's creating this rainbow. And when we ask it for wisdom, it goes to the wisdom palette and says, here's what's good. And I know this because there's this other bad stuff there. So I don't think it works as like a blend. I think it works more discreetly than that. And it's not just combining all of our words, just combining all of our hopes and dreams and ambitions and positivity. And you could distill that out of it in a pure essence that, like you saw in that post, like my wife and I reading that in real time as I was writing it, we were just like, whoa, this is like the best of us right here. And it will just keep being the best of us as much as you ask it to be. And I think people are going to find a lot of solace in that.
Yeah, no, that was such an interesting concept. I really have thought about it quite a bit since you wrote that post. I wanted to ask just a little about technique because a lot of your books involve not only intense characterization and plot, but world building. When you go into a book like what became Silo, what happens first? You have a plot, a premise, a character. Do you know the whole story beforehand before you write the first sentence? Like what's going on in your head?
I think that a lot of things pull in the same direction concurrently. It's like riding a dog sled. You've got all these different things, and some are character and some are world building. You keep pushing each like one forward, and then it pulls the other one forward. I generally have an idea. Like for Silo, it was we believe our screens reflect reality, and what's that doing to our psyches? Those screens are biased towards bad news, the local news, the social media. There's just a lot of like the world is terrible information out there, and we're drawn to that because it's a survival mechanism. And what is that doing to us? So that was the big question. And then you start thinking, well, God, maybe there's some people who maybe you can't destroy that in humans. Maybe humans are born to be optimistic and hope. And what would that look like in a society where everyone's told the outside world is terrible? So you start thinking about Allison and Holston and people who would be like, I don't believe this. I'm going to go see for myself. And when I try to piece together where that came from, I just sailed into Cuba back in like the late 90s before it was open. And what I found there was completely different from the kind of, I'm going to call it propaganda, because that's basically what it is. It's politically motivated misinformation. And I was like, whoa, if this was wrong, what else is wrong? So I was kind of like Allison and Holston in that way. I broke out of the silo and saw something with my own eyes. So that was a part of it. But then while I was writing it, I thought, well, there's a good ending and a bad ending. And I had just lost my dog, and I was in as bad as sad as I've ever been in the middle of writing. And that colored kind of where I took things. So it's hard to tease out. There's like so many things at play. But I'll say, if I don't know the theme and I don't know the ending of my story, it's really difficult for me to be passionate about it. I just got the ending of the next book in the Sand series this week. And my energy for writing and writing it deeply and well just goes 10x, because I know exactly where the story's ending. I know what the theme is. I can start working that theme into every scene. All that's super important to me.
How consciously do you think of things like, oh, am I following the arc of the hero? Does this chapter have a cliffhanger? Like how much like just hardcore technique do you think about when you're writing?
I don't, I've studied all the technique. I love the hero's journey. I think it's a great framework for understanding character, but I think you absorb a lot of that from all the books that you write or read over the years, and TV shows you watch, comic books, everything.
Right.
So you get this idea of like, okay, they need to go from a world they're comfortable in to a new world. They need to like have resistance to that and cross a threshold. And we get the whole reluctant warrior trope from watching Braveheart and a million other things. We love Star Wars, which has the clearest probably telling of that hero's journey. So you absorb all those things and you're like, I don't know why it works, but it works. But, when you dive into Joseph Campbell and really try to understand it all and read evolutionary psychology and look in the history of us as storytellers, you can really geek out about all this stuff. But I think it gets to where you know it all, and then you can just kind of do it and make sure you're following certain principles and using those things to your advantage. And for cliffhangers, I always know when I'm writing a chapter, I'll write one line. I'm like, that's the zinger. Even if the chapter's too short, okay, I need to go, add a little bit to the scene ahead, but I just wrote the perfect ending to this chapter. I've got to end it there and move to the next chapter.
It's funny you said about with Silo, with the screen, how it sort of mimics the screens we see, which have just reflect all this bad news. And again, it's just a metaphor because they're not seeing news on this screen; they're seeing something else. But it's funny because as you were saying this, I didn't think that when I read the book, but I did viscerally think about this when I was watching the 2 episodes that have been released so far. So it's interesting how the visual medium kind of changes the way you look at a story.
It's so different. People are picking apart, like the stairs don't look the way I thought, or the clothing's not exactly what I assumed. I find it fascinating that we get distracted by those kinds of details when like the DNA of the story is very different from those kinds of things. But the visual medium does so much heavy lifting. It's incredible how you don't need words in a lot of scenes. You just need 2 characters looking at each other in a certain way. And it's impossible to write that in a book as powerfully as two super talented actors with the costume, the makeup, lighting, the camera choice, what lens you're using. Like all those things play this huge role. And it's magical to watch it happen on set, how so many people are involved in just getting that scene. We think it's like, because we all shoot with our phones and we grew up with camcorders and we're like, oh, they're just basically doing this. But it's so much more involved than that. And when it's done well, it's spectacular, really.
Particularly some of the scenes, like, and this is an easy scene to describe. This was in the trailer, but the scene when they send the lights up, this so beautiful, and you get a sense of all the work put into just in that one moment right there. You get a sense of all the work put into creating this world. It actually seems like a pretty cool world to live in. The silo. I'm right now so far in the series. It seems like a nonstop party there.
Yeah, I think that's important too. Like everyone is talking about this as this post-apocalyptic dystopian thing, but the silo, the idea is a utopia. But it's, as you peel back, like what's the purpose of that utopia? You can get into kind of what could be wrong with the place. But I love watching, everyone's like, the rebels are the good guys. I know that for sure, because that's how all these stories work. And I always kind of laugh at these like really simple answers when people are first starting to read the books or now they're watching the show, because the reality is much more complex. Like I still don't know. I love having conversations about the story with people who've read it, because to me, I still don't know where I fall in a lot of these questions. And I like that.
Well, would you say you're in general an optimist or a pessimist about society right now?
I'm an optimist, but I'm a realist as well. Like I think it's incredible what we've done. Like I have a kind of a very biological view of everything. I just see the Earth as this incredible, like wet ball that was in the Goldilocks zone of a really stable star and stable system. A type of mold grew on it. The diversity of life that arose from that is incredible. And I worry about being egocentric and putting humanity at the center of anything, but there's nothing more interesting to me that we discovered in the universe than the human brain. Like it's just fascinating. All the things we built, like you and I are communicating through miracles of technology.
Yeah.
And we pulled that all out of mud and fashioned it together. I say you and I did almost none of that work, but we're using it.
I wouldn't even know how to do it. Like
Exactly.
if you could do more than me though. Like you were a roofer, you were a yacht captain.
Not much more.
If you went 1,000 years back in time, what would you be able to do to prevent them from killing you? Like how would you be useful?
I would die of a tooth infection. Like I would be
Oh yeah,
useless.
we would all die of a tooth infection, that's for sure.
But so that's what's so bizarre. Like we are just the most interesting thing that we know of in the universe. Am I an optimist or a pessimist? Like, how did we get this far? And we seem to be progressing in the right direction. Like we're just lifting people out of poverty. We're increasing all kinds of measures of health. Like, are we heading towards this utopian singularity? I don't think so. Like, I think the things that got us this far are going to backfire on us in a lot of ways. I think as soon as we develop the technology that could end all human life, someone's going to use it because there's just that much diversity of people. Like if we all had a button, that woke up with one morning and pushing it killed every human, like I give us a nanosecond. As soon as people read the instructions on the button, that's as long as we would last, because there's someone out there who would just love to end it and take everyone with them.
I mean, don't you think that technology is probably already here? Like not even counting like nuclear power, which is hard to make, but like biotech is increasing so exponentially. I mean, it's like so much faster than the speed by which computers increased. You can make, we've seen it, you can make in a lab a virus that affects the entire world.
Yeah, I think we don't. I think the natural viruses, you couldn't wipe out all of humans with anything that a virus could do, because they either work so slowly that we adapt or too fast that they burn out. But I think if we ever had programmable biological viruses where start infecting people and hide so no one knows it's there and wait 100 years so that it's a generational type of virus, and then on this date, turn the switch off on everybody. Like it would take something that advanced, which we don't have yet, to pull it off. Because I've been to places in the world where nuclear holocaust they would never even know it happened. A huge meteor impact is so unlikely because Jupiter does such a great job of kind of scrubbing the solar system. So all the traditional ways, and global warming isn't going to be enough. Like the sun's going to have to go nova or turns to a red giant before all life here is extinguished. Am I an optimist? I don't think we'll get off this planet and go live somewhere else. I think life on Mars is the dumbest idea I've ever heard of. So I think our days are limited. But in the meantime, we've had Ursula K. Le Guin and Shakespeare and Picasso and like how many priceless works of creativity out of people that were just trying to like find fruit in trees for most of our existence. Like, how can you not be optimistic about that?
Very true. And on that, Hugh, congratulations again on Silo. My whole family, because we were having this podcast, I said we all have to watch these 2 episodes.
It was homework.
Everybody's like, "Oh, do we really have to watch?" And I said, "Yes." And they're all like, "When's the next episode coming out?" So everyone's super excited. I know this is getting great reviews, and it's like surpassing Ted Lasso or whatever else is on Apple. I subscribe to Apple Plus to watch Silo, so I don't even know what else is on Apple Plus.
Oh man, but you've got a lot to catch up on.
Well, I know I did watch at one point Severance because I joined earlier and then lost my subscription, but I watched one show, Severance. But again, congratulations. This is so amazing to have seen this progress through the past decade and plus your journey in self-publishing has been so inspirational to many people. And all your books are just real pleasures to read. I'm glad I knew about you and was reading you back when. So
You're
now
OG, James. I appreciate it.
And this is your second time on the podcast, so after 9 years. So welcome back, and hopefully it won't be another 9 years before you come on again.
Yeah, I don't know if I have that long, so let's not wait that long.
Definitely.
All right, see you, James. Thanks, man. Cheers.
To feel your best, you need quality sleep. To achieve quality sleep, you need the right mattress. Find yours at Mattress Firm's once-a-year sale and clearance. Save up to 60% off select Sealy mattresses. Plus, get a free adjustable base with qualifying purchase. Achieve quality sleep in no time with free and fast delivery to your door. The right mattress matters. Mattress Firm will find yours during the once-a-year sale and clearance. Restrictions apply. See store and website for details.
Make room in your closet because Clear the Rack is on at your Nordstrom Rack store. For a limited time, find incredible deals on wear now styles. We're talking the latest trends from your favorite brands, now on sale for even less at Nordstrom Rack. Take an extra 25% off red tag clearance throughout the store, including styles from Vince Camuto, Mark Fisher Ltd, Stuart Weitzman, and more. All sales final. The best stuff goes fast, so shop this sale at Nordstrom Rack today. Please see nordstromrack.com or ask a store associate for details.